is 8:54, and I'm your guest host, Dr. Smear Hendricks, on this edition of News and Views on Salam Media. Today we are joined by Leona Archary, who is the CEO of the Agricultural Development Agency, AGDA for short, and we are chatting land reform. Thank you so much for being with us this morning, Leona.
Thanks, Dr. Smear.
Leona, could you briefly tell us what is AGDA and what work do you do?
Well, AGDA is a non-profit entity that focuses on driving inclusive growth in agriculture. It is made up of members from across the agricultural value chain. It's currently the only entity in South Africa that has people that come from your different agricultural unions, agricultural organizations, agribusiness, the banking sector, retail partners, etc. And our thinking is that through partnerships and collaboration, we will be able to build a much more sustainable platform for agricultural development in an inclusive manner going forward.
So, Leona, you've been working in this sector for many years, and you were previously with government as well. What are the changes you've seen over the years, and what contribution do you feel AGDA has played to progressive land reform?
Well, I think there's a lot more thinking around how partnering and collaborating can actually help the sector, can actually bring long-term sustainability. I think there's some very good practice models that are being implemented at the moment, even from the commercial farming sector. And having obviously come from government and now being in private sector, working very closely with private sector partners, it gives me the advantage of being able to see both sides, understand both sides a little bit better. So I really think that there's a lot of commercial farming partners who are coming to the table, maybe not sufficiently enough, but there are quite a few. And what AGDA tries to do is connect people with each other. So we try and bring new entrants into the same space with commercial partners so that they can work out, and we support due diligences, business plan development, helping them to raise capital for those transactions that they could probably not get over the line before. We also have been playing quite a significant role in the skills development, where we're trying to see a new role for CSI and SED spend in the country. I mean, there's a lot of money that goes into CSI and tends to go into some agri development. But I honestly believe that without an orchestrated kind of programmatic approach, that's really quite a waste of some of the CSI spend in agriculture at the moment. And that's what we as AGDA, together with the partners, are trying to drive.
So there's the last few years, even for non-legal people, they have been hearing a lot about Section 25 of the Constitution, and talk of expropriation. But the foundation where I work, we engage in a legal challenge right now around Section 25.5 of the Constitution. And for those joining in who maybe are not familiar with Section 25.5, I'm just going to read it for everyone's benefit. It says, "The state must take reasonable legislative and other measures within its available resources to foster conditions which enable citizens to gain access to land on an equitable basis." And so this section of the Constitution is really speaking about a positive obligation on the state to foster conditions, to realize this equitable access. I mean, to what extent do you see this section of the Constitution currently being realized within the agricultural sector?
So I think, over the years, government has put together several different programs, several different policies. With redistribution, there's a number or a range of programs and policies that were under that, obviously with restitution as well. So I think, Dr. Sumaya, the biggest challenge is always, yes, equitable access to land is key, but what happens when you are giving people access to land? And I think that for me is one of the biggest challenges that government has not yet been able to address sufficiently. So if one talks about the numbers of hectares of land that have already been transferred, the question is, as that resulted in people being in a better off situation or a worse off situation? Are some of the programs that are there, like your proactive land acquisition, etc., going the extra mile in actually bringing sustainability into the program? And I think there's a lot more that we could be doing in the space. I mean, you're talking here both access for urban development as well as rural or agricultural development. At the same time, one needs to understand the equitable access in the context of saying, not everyone wanted to be a farmer. Not everyone necessarily is wanting to be actively involved in agriculture of some kind. Do we fully understand the need of people in our country as far as access to land is concerned? And I mean, there's been debates for quite a number of years of the definition of equitable access as well. I think your current litigation is trying to find, how do we get to that point and how do we stipulate on some of the actions of government going forward. But just to add that, I think the biggest challenge that we face is getting government to also understand that, yes, this is a major obligation on them as state to act, but can they act a lot more collaboratively and in partnership with government, not with private sector, not just when land is transferred over to communities, but can we really begin to relook the design of some of these programs that we are putting out to achieve equitable access to land? Perhaps that is where the challenge exists at the moment, that there is deficiencies in those programs because they would give access without any developmental support. And that has resulted in large tracts of land then being unproductive and us not actually achieving the gains that we should be, especially around agricultural development in South Africa.
Mm-hmm. I would love to hear your insights, unrelated to Section 25.5, but just land reform in general, almost like as an insider in the agricultural sector, with everything happening with AfriForum and Trump in recent weeks. I mean, what's been the discussions and the sense within the agricultural sector? Can you give us can you tell us some of the conversations you've been privy to?
Well, I think the first thing is that at the moment, right, we all agree that no land is currently being taken away without equitable compensation as well. So I think let's put that to rest. I think that nobody's land is just being expropriated at this point in time without giving due regard to what is the value of those properties and just an equitable compensation to wherever land may be taken away for, and obviously public interest, public good, etc. And expropriation, Dr. Sumaya, I mean, has been there and is there in many parts of the world at the moment. And those are some of the conversations happening at the moment where governments can intervene if land is required for a particular purpose. In the land reform sector, I mean, I've been there for more than 25 years in government itself. We have not expropriated any piece of land in the country, and anything that may have been expropriated for land reform would have been done with compensation. So I think what we are looking at and the conversations that we are part of is, how do we scale up? How do we expand? Like I was explaining, the good practice partnership models that are existing, where we're able to actually bring more land or bring land more available to the people that need it, and begin to transfer those lands. So those are some of the conversations happening. How is government going to transfer land out that's sitting in a state title at the moment into the hands of community and farmers? But I think at the moment there's quite positive conversations. We also obviously trying to act within the agriculture and agro-processing master plan and ensure that the targets that we've set in those are also achieved. But I think the issue is, how do we fast track sustainable land reform in our country? And partners are getting around that and behind that as well at the moment.
Mm-hmm. So people listening to this that want to see change in the agriculture sector, but might not be might not have a history in terms of whether business or practice of being in the agriculture sector. What support can they lend? Maybe they have capital, maybe they have technical expertise, and they recognize that land reform in the agriculture sector is key. What contribution can they make?
Well, see, for me, I think one of the biggest challenges we face is transformation within the actual agricultural value chain. So here we're talking about participation in the value chain. We're talking about being able to bring people into the agro-processing sector, being able to bring new Black entrants and Black entrepreneurs into the commercial farming sector. So, I mean, capital is always something that is needed. One of the things that we are busy with right now is setting up a fund on two levels. One that we've established in the Netherlands, where we are raising capital to actually de-risk these commercial type transactions in South Africa so that you can get more Black farmers, Black entrepreneurs beginning to get into that sector. The biggest inhibitor, obviously, is always finance. And we are trying to work by de-risking that so your commercial farming sector can come in. I mean, commercial banking sector can come in. So those are parts that people can participate in. In South Africa, we're trying to find a way of, again, putting a fund together where we consolidate like I was saying, CSI, SED spend, and people can get involved in that as well. And we always know that, listen, there's always returns that people would look for, and they can be social impact returns as well as returns in monetary ways as well. But people can definitely get involved in transforming the agricultural value chain and access to land at the moment in South Africa.
Mm. And just in terms of the role of civil society, I mean, civil society has been quite active, and even just academics as well in general, whether it's, you know, supporting governments, various reviews, giving input to that, or trying to keep the issue alive within the public realm, even when some of the you know, the tension dies down, but, you know, making sure that it remains on the agenda and then it's not doesn't go through just periods in which there's a lot of focus and others there isn't, but that the work continues. But I just wondered, you know, civil society, whether it's a legal action of the NMF or other civil society groups taking other forms of advocacy, what role do you think and what positive role do you think civil society can play in pushing for change in the agricultural sector? Because obviously we appreciate what you're talking about the partnerships that need to happen and the investments that happen and people coming on board. But how does civil society help to contribute to accelerate that process?
I think, Sumaya, that's a very important question, because in the early days of land reform, we had a very active civil society, especially when it came to issues around land. And I know because we worked with them quite significantly in those days. I think one of the big gaps at the moment is the institutional building of our communities, right? So, and I think civil society can definitely be playing a significant role in raising that awareness around the kind of structuring, the community participation, the community engagements, negotiation processes that need to be happening, but also just helping them to understand and build this dialogue in getting to know what is the need of the different communities that are accessing land at this moment in time. And as much as we think that government alone can be doing this, or maybe private sector can step in, it's actually a role that civil society, I believe, should be playing at the moment in strengthening, you know, from a community side, the ownership models that are there for communities. And remember that we tend to often focus on land access in the rural spaces, but there is so many questions around land access for urban development at this moment in time. And I think that's the types of conversations that we should be having, and really bringing up a lot more on what is it that we define as sustainable land reform may not be the same as what communities are looking for at this moment in time. And we see that with a number of restituted land claims at the moment, where there is a lot of conflict, and it's specifically because on how we've thought we could structure these particular types of transactions. And I think we need to go back to the drawing board and look at how civil society can help us bring that together as well. And that's why I think when we're talking partnerships, for me, it's not just business and government, but it's about business, civil society, as well as government coming together much more strongly and building together, you know, the programs that are to start emerging over the next few years. We cannot continue to do what we were doing and think that, you know, we're going to bring change the way we want to see it.
To end off, so a theme that's recurring throughout the show is one of hope. And I wondered, you know, with all the change that needs to happen within the agricultural sector, what's something that keeps you hopeful?
Well, this is like a passion of mine. Land and agriculture is a passion. I work with the communities. I've worked with communities and farmers who've received land, who've seen success on their land, rural communities who've received houses or, sports facilities for the first time. And I think just the joy that you see on people's faces when those days come, when those days of handing over land comes, etc. I think that helps us to actually push forward because we need to bring change. But I think I'm also very hopeful because of the people that we're working with. I think we see that now with the partners that have joined us in AGDA, that there's a lot of people who are thinking the same, moving in the same direction, and realizing that we have to be the change that we want to see in South Africa. So I think it just takes each of us to stand up, take hands, and I really believe we're going to be able to make a difference. I don't think it's all just a story of gloom. I think we're a really resilient nation as South Africa, and even right now, with all the conversations and the rhetoric around the expropriation and sort of the bad forebodings that could come with it, I've seen people still rise up and say, no, that's not where we're going. We still have hope. We still can make the sector something that brings the jobs to our country and really brings significant growth to South Africa going forward.
Thank you for ending us off on that inspiring note. That was CEO of AGDA, Leona Archary. It is 9:10. I'm your guest host for the News and Views show on Salam Media this Monday morning. My name is Dr. Smay Hendricks, and we're now heading into some ads.